Hey, what is going on, guys? In this video today, we're going to be discussing legacy aim assistant settings versus linear versus exponential, but with a little bit of a twist. I made a video similar to this maybe 3 months ago, where I took a sample of around 20 top controller Fortnite players, and I looked at which of those 3 options they were using at the time. But there's 2 main reasons for why I'm making this similar video on the same subject. First, when I took a look at the most popular and successful controller players in that video, I believe every single player except for maybe one, because I think I might have included razorX, was controller on PC. And since I know that the majority of people that watch my videos are console players, I had an idea. Instead of taking a look at just the top controller players to where 95% of them are going to be controller on PC, how about I take a look at the top console controller players? There's a massive difference between controller on PC versus controller on console, so I was really interested in seeing if there was also a difference in how many players use linear versus legacy versus exponential. If you remember that video, I believe I surveyed 17 people total, and it was a dead split between linear and legacy, so 8-8 with one player using exponential. And the other reason why I think it's a good idea to make this video is because at this point in time, players have had much more of an opportunity to try all the different options. When I made the other video, it was only 2 to 3 weeks after Fortnite first gave players a chance to choose between the 3 different types of aim assist and settings. Therefore, it makes sense that a decent amount of those players probably changed shortly after, since it was all so new at the time. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so the first thing I want to briefly talk about is how I determined the quote-unquote top or best console Fortnite players that I wanted to look at in this video. So sometime fairly recently, Fortnite Tracker created leaderboards that ranks Fortnite players by their earnings and overall success in online tournaments. That's nothing new, plenty of sites already do that, but I believe Fortnite Tracker is the only one out there that allows you to specifically sort by money earned on console in console tournaments. So what I did was basically looked at the list of highest earning players, and I searched their name on YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch, and tried my best to find some recent indication of whether they were using linear, legacy, or exponential. I'll admit, it definitely wasn't easy, and I ended up not being able to include some of the players I really wanted to, but I did the best that I could, and hopefully I got a really good sample. So just be aware that even though you may not recognize a ton of names on this list, because a lot of them are kinda unknown players, they've all earned upwards of $5,000 US from console tournaments, which indicates a constant level of success in things like the Winter Royale and the weekly platform Cash Cups. Then, once I got about 15-ish players from that highest earning list, I rounded it out with 3 to 4 of the more well-known, really good console players that I knew off the top of my head. Also, just be aware that a couple of these players may also play controller on PC from time to time, but since they're a top earner on console, I think it's totally fair to call them a top console player. So now, let's get into the results that I think you guys are going to find kinda surprising, because I sure did. So starting off with the least common option, we have exponential, but this part was actually pretty surprising. I told you guys that when I looked at the controller on PC players, only 1 out of the 17 or whatever total was on exponential, so it was almost totally irrelevant. Because of that, I was initially planning on just making this video be legacy versus linear, but as I started looking at these console players, something like 3 out of the first 10 I looked at were on exponential. So I then realized I had to include it, and in total, out of the 18 top console players, a pretty significant 4 of them play on exponential. Blaza, who has 24k in earnings, Dylan on Fort, who has 17k, V Blazified, who has a little under 10k, and Bizik, who also has just under 10k. So definitely a really strong group of players there using exponential, which has kind of become an afterthought to the majority of controller players. And after I share the full results, I'll explain my theory for why a significant chunk of these top console players are using Exponential. But here's a tweet from Bizik that kinda gives a preview. Someone asked why he used Exponential instead of Linear or Legacy, and he replied back saying, Expo is great for hipfire, great for tracking and beams, but it's not stiff like Legacy. And speaking of Legacy, now we'll move on to that, and out of the 18 total players on the list, 5 of them use Legacy. Those players are 60 FPS with a Dream, who's the top console player in terms of earnings with just over 30k, Merkin Cartoon, who has 18k earnings, Gucci Brow, who has 10.5k, Ace V Edits, who has 9k, and Bumpkin Zero, who has 8.5k. And Bumpkin actually tweeted something pretty interesting about Legacy for console players, saying, all the best console players play Legacy, and then following that up with, all the people who have placed well and are known on console play Legacy. So I definitely respect his opinion, but I think this video is basically gonna prove it to be incorrect. So with some simple math, if 4 out of 18 are on Exponential and 5 out of 18 are on Legacy, that means the final 9 out of 18 top console players from our list are on Linear. And since 9 players is a lot, I'll just read their names and not their earnings so I don't waste like 20 extra seconds. Apostle, Lupian, FatherX, Concerned, Luke CF14, Pure Gomer, Twexy, BH7, and Vidizzy. So the final distribution is 50% of those top console players use Linear, 28% use Legacy, and the final 22% of players use Exponential. So let's talk about why these results are so different than what we saw from the controller on PC players a few months ago. The most noteworthy takeaway, in my opinion, is the lack of top console players who are on Legacy. In the other controller on PC video, exactly 50% of those players were on Legacy, so 28% is obviously a huge decrease. And I feel like for the top controller on PC players, the amount of guys on Legacy may have even increased since that video, and that's mainly due to guys like Unknown Army, Wavy Jacob, and CRR who make it look so dominant, and then they'll make people want to copy them and use the same thing. But when it comes to console, I think the one word that Bizik used to describe Legacy is really interesting: stiff. Even on PC, Legacy definitely does feel significantly less smooth than Linear. I think even the most devout Legacy user would admit that. But at the end of the day, it's still worth it because you get that snap-on while ADSing, which enables you to L2 spam with ARs and SMGs, plus L2 pop shot with shotguns. However, since we're talking about console in this video, you need to remember that it's so much harder to take advantage of that snap-on. And let me just clarify this because there's still some people that don't really understand it. It isn't that aim assist is actually weaker on console than it is on PC. That's something that was true about a year ago, but was patched sometime around Season 7 or 8, and it's been proven multiple times by multiple different people. The reason it seems like aim assist is weaker on console is because of the input lag and lack of FPS that makes it so much harder to control the aim assist, so hopefully that makes sense. Therefore, I can totally understand why over 70% of these top console players are choosing to go with either Linear or Exponential instead of Legacy. Things like building and editing are definitely less impacted by FPS and input lag than aim is, so therefore I guess it makes sense to pick either Linear or Exponential, which is better for building and editing. Now, I still wouldn't really recommend picking Exponential over Linear, but here's my quick guess on why it seems like there's actually a somewhat significant amount of top console players on Exponential. Since most Linear players basically customize their settings to have no aim acceleration at all, it can be pretty hard to use. Even when I tried Linear on PC, I frequently felt so out of control at times, and I can imagine it's even harder on console. So when you think about it, Exponential is basically just a bootleg Linear with more aim acceleration, so it's easier to control. To those players that use it, I'd probably just recommend using Linear with boosts, but I do kind of get the appeal behind Exponential specifically for console players. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you watched the entire thing, be sure to let me know with a comment down in the comment section below. I want to pose this question to console players specifically, since that's what this video is mainly about. Do you currently play on linear, legacy, or exponential aim assist / settings? And also, feel free to let me know if what you learned in this video makes you either more or less confident in that choice. Be sure to leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications, do whatever the heck you want, and I will catch you guys next time.